Welcome to section 7.5. We're dealing with properties of logarithms. Our goal today is to work on these properties so that we can better use them tomorrow when we actually solve logarithms. So we've got two types of properties. The first is called a change of base. And the reason we use a change of base is because our calculator, and I apologize as my screen is going crazy, our calculators only do base 10 and a natural log. So when we use our calculators can do log base 10 and the log base e, or a natural log. Okay, and so the only thing our calculators can do is that. So the question is, what happens when we have a base 7 or base 4 that our calculators can't do? Now, if you have a TI-84 plus, some of those have where you can actually put the base in, but for the majority of us, we don't have that option. And so what we have is this change of base. And this change of base is so important when we're trying to do our logs. Next section. Take a look. The way it works is we take the log of the big number, so the log of A, and we divide it by the log of our base, which is C. So the way I remember it is the base goes on the bottom. That's kind of my way of remembering it. But you can do this by changing your base to a log base 10, or I could change it to a natural log, where I take the natural log of A and divide it by the natural log of C. And so you can do either of these in order to do a change of base. It doesn't matter, you'll get the same decimal in the end. Okay, so here's what we want to do. We want to take our calculators and we want to do log base 3 of 8. So we do the log of 8 divided by the log of 3. And what you want to do then is put that in your calculator to see what you get. Now, you could also do the natural log of 8 over the natural log of 3. But I'm going to start with the log. Log of 8, and your calculator puts a parentheses here, so just close the parentheses. Divided by the log of 3, and again, the same thing. The calculator puts a parentheses here, so close it. You get about 1.89, and I'm just going to do 2 decimal places. You would find, though, that you would get the same answer, again, if you take the natural log of 8 over the natural log of 3. So keep that in mind. You can do either. Let's do example 2. Again, the base is always the bottom, so the log of 9 first, divided by the log of 26, or same thing, natural log of 9 over the natural log of 26. And if we put this in our calculators, you should get about 0.67. Okay, so this is the idea. So if we ask you to evaluate a log and the base isn't a base 10 or a base E, then you have to use this idea of the change of base. That's the first property we're doing. Then we give you 3 properties for logs that'll help us simplify for tomorrow. The way it works is if I multiply quantities within the log, I can split them up to addition. So I can take the log base b of the first one, which is m, plus the log base b of the second number, which is m. Okay, so you're looking for how many multiplications will tell you how many logs you should have. So if I look, I have 2 times an x times a y, and I put those in because if you'll notice now I have 3 separate quantities, which means I should have 3 separate logs. So as I look at this, and I'm going to write it underneath so I have enough room, but the log of 2 plus the log of x plus the log of y. Okay, and so because there are 3 different numbers, the hardest part about this is that 2 numbers are separate from letters. So 2 is different than x, which is different than y. Okay, so if you multiply the numbers inside, then you add the logs. In opposition, if you divide the numbers inside, then you subtract the logs. And we take the one on top, so the log base b of m minus the log base b of n. Okay, so let's practice one. I have the log base 2 of x over 3. So the x one comes first. So the log base 2 of x minus the log base 2 of 3. And for each quantity you have to have the log attached to it. So that's the second property. The third property is called the power property. And so what that does is says we don't want this exponent in a log. So we're going to bring this exponent in front and multiply it to our log. So n times the log base b of m. So how does that work in the one below? The 6 comes down in front, and you say 6 times the log base 5 of x. Okay? Now, let me change colors again. I want to talk to you about them in terms of their names. Multiplication means it's the product property. Okay, product means multiply. Division is the quotient property. And the last one with an exponent, we call that the power property. Okay, so at least you have names kind of attached to them. In case we say use the quotient property and you say, well, I don't know which one that is. That's the division one. Okay, so what we're going to do is if you flip to the back side, we're going to actually practice with some questions. So let me move to what yours looks like. And we have two options. And your homework is either going to say expand, which means, expand means we want multiple logs. Okay, condense means we only want one log. And so this worksheet, I'm going to do a couple with you, and I'm going to ask you to try a couple at home before you come to class. But the goal is to be able to like break these apart. And so here's what I want to do. Let's start with the first one. This is the quotient property, and right now it's one log. So we're going to expand it over here, and because I'm dividing two different things, I'm going to have two different logs. Division means subtract. So I'm going to have the log base 4 of 3 minus the log base 4 of 7. Okay, so subtraction, and what I like to keep in mind is, see this line? It looks like the subtraction line over here. So the division bar looks like subtraction. That's kind of how I keep it straight. Let's look at the second one. It's multiplication, which means I'm multiplying two things, so I'll have two logs. So the log base 4 of 3, and multiplication means add the log base 4 of 7. Okay, let's keep expanding. Now you'll notice in the third one, I have 1, 2, 3 different things. So the 3 different things means that I will have 3 different logs. Now I have a division bar, which means minus, so I'm going to start there. I have the log base 4 of x minus, because that's what the division bar is. Now because I have two things in the denominator, I'm going to put a parentheses so that I can talk about the two things on the bottom together. Now this 3 and the y are being multiplied, so multiplication means addition. So the log base 4 of 3 plus the log base 4 of y. And I put the parentheses because this whole parentheses then means this is in the denominator. Okay, so that's why I like the parentheses. You don't necessarily have to have it. And if you don't have the parentheses, you'd have to take this negative and distribute it to both. But I think the parentheses are helpful because it says both of these things then should be in the denominator. Okay, now this next one I'm going to do with you because it has exponents in it also. Now you'll notice x and y are two different things. So there's multiplication. And then exponents, we know by the power property, go in front. So I'm going to start with my two different logs. I know I'm going to have a natural log of x. Because it's multiply, I know I'm going to have a natural log of y also. Now the squared exponent only goes in front of the x. So in front of this natural log of x, I'm going to put the 2 for the squared, and the 1/3 only goes in front of the y's log, so this 1/3 goes in front of the y log. Now, some people need to take this in 2 steps, which is fine. Anytime I see an exponent, I know that should go in front. Okay, so this last one, I'm going to have you try on your own. Okay, this one needs to be attempted before you get to class tomorrow. And so this is kind of the basic idea. Now let's go the other way. Let me slide this down a second. Let's go the other way. If I give you multiple logs, the question is, can you put them together? Well, I see addition, which means I'm going to multiply, and I see a number in front, which means it's going to be an exponent. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say the natural log, I should only have one log. I have 40 times 1/2 gets squared because the exponent, the number in front is the exponent, and then times x. Now, this is not as simplified as you can go, so I want to simplify this. 1/2 squared is 1/4, and 1/4 times 40 is 10. So I have the natural log of 10x, and this is what we want our answer to be because we'd like it as simplified as it can go. All right, let's try another condensed. Again, this means multiplication. The subtraction means division. The 3 in front is an exponent. So let's see what we can find. I should only have one log because I'm condensing it together. And I'm going to take on top 9 times 2 to the 3rd power. So 9 times 2 cubed, all over, because there's my division, all over 3. Okay, so let's simplify this a little bit. 2 cubed is 8. 8 times 9 is 72. So I have the log of 72 all over 3, but can we take 72 and divide it by 3? We can, so it's the log of 24. And again, when you condense, you want to simplify. When you expand, there will be no reason to simplify. Okay? One more expansion, and then we'll be done for section 7-5. Now you'll notice I'm multiplying a 5 and an x, and I'm dividing by a y. So let's start with the multiplication. The log base 6, I have 3 different things, so I'll have 3 different logs, of 5. Multiply means plus the log base 6 of x cubed. What happens to this cubed? The cubed goes in front, so I'm going to slide a 3 in there, minus the log base 6 of y. So I have the log base 6 of 5 plus 3 log base 6 of x minus log base 6 of y. So this is the idea of the properties, and what's going to happen next section is I'm going to give you something like this, and I'm going to say equals 10, and you're going to have to solve it. And so we're going to have to simplify this natural log of 10x to equal 10 so we can actually find out what x is. And so that's going to be our goal for tomorrow. But for today, let's just practice, get these properties down, how do they work. Again, I'm asking you to do one question before you come in tomorrow. This one, okay? So this one is due before you come in order to get your points for the notes for the day. Okay, so thanks for watching 7-5. Again, try that one question and maybe even start your homework if you get a chance.